Well, the answer is right here with our next speaker, Rob Littlewood. And in this session, he will highlight legal and moral obligations of employers to ensure a safe, loyal and respected workplace. From Workwise Advisory Services, please welcome Rob Littlewood. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to talk to you. It sounds from that intro that I'm going to pull out the magic wand and make everything right. So, unfortunately, the magic wand's busted, so that won't be happening today. Let me tell you a little bit about my business and who I am. I'm a registered and licensed industrial agent. We don't like to refer to ourselves as consultants, but inevitably it's much easier to say I'm a consultant because most people have no idea what a registered and licensed industrial agent is. It's sort of the first thing I think of is James Bond, and it's nothing like a secret agent, although I could be licensed to prevent you from being killed within Fair Work Australia or a state commission. The topic is working wisely with IR and HR. We are an employer-based organisation, so we specialise in representing employers across a whole diverse range of industries, going from 1 or 2 employees up to 450 employees at the end of the day. How I'm happy to be speaking to you today, you'll learn a bit more about when Adrian talks to you and the association that his business has with our company. But I want to give you a bit of background into this IR legislation and where we are now. And it's no surprise, and when Jim talks to you a little bit later about the new Work Health Safety Act, we've got this big push on in towards federalisation and nationalisation. And it started with industrial relations. It started, if you cast your mind back, under the Howard Coalition government, when they won both houses of Parliament and managed to use the constitutional powers of Australia to really sanction and underpin this move towards industrial relations as a national program. It makes sense because heretofore different legislations, different pieces of act that we have to follow, and if you're an interstate company or you're dealing with interstate companies, it can be very, very difficult to make sure that you'll be in compliance. Now, as a senior advocate friend of mine says, there's 2 things that you don't want to know how they're made. The first one is sausages, and the second one is industrial relations legislation. And if you've got IR legislation called work choices, you can guarantee that your choices are limited. And if it's followed up with the Fair Work Act, it's a bit problematical as to where the fairness actually sits. And my own personal opinion, if you're a small to medium business enterprise, there is not too much in the Fair Work Act that is fair for an employer. It's all about employee rights, and it's all about your job as employers to make sure that you get your responsibilities right. It's very easy, with the best of intentions, to fall foul very, very quickly. Just as an example, I'll see how well you know the Act itself. How many people have heard of the National Employment Standards? Can you give me a hand up? Okay. There are 10 National Employment Standards. The 10th one is the Fair Work Information Statement. Put your hand up if you've heard of the Fair Work Information Statement. It might be of interest to you as constitutional employers, as the bulk of you will be, unless you're from Western Australia, that giving the Fair Work Information Statement to a new employee is mandatory and has been since January 2010. If you haven't been doing that, the great news is that every breach of the Act is a technical $33,000 fine. And if you've had 10 new employees since January 2010, that's potentially $330,000 in fines if you would be audited. Is that likely to happen? No, but I'm just illustrating how quickly you can fall foul of this legislation. Because I'm sure that most of you sitting there, your one aim, and I know from listening to Gary's talk earlier, is that you want to treat your employees how you would like to have been treated as an employee if you were in the same situation yourself. The only issue with that is sometimes it's a bit like throwing the cupboard open and saying, guys, here's a cupboard full of chocolate. When you finish this cupboard full of chocolate, guess what? I'm going to fill it up again. That goes on for a little while until all of a sudden we want caramello, we want fruit and nut, we want top deck, we want every other kind. So you have to draw a line in the sand somewhere. So, national agenda for industrial relations, the only state in the country that hasn't, at least to some extent, handed over its IR powers to the feds is Western Australia, where I come from. And so employers in your industry, if their partners and sole traders are not captured within our state by the federal legislation. That's sometimes a bit of a worry for them because they've spent a lot of time writing agreements that aren't compliant with the very legislation they're supposed to be compliant with. So it's a nightmare and it's a minefield. And why do you get involved with companies like mine? Well, because it's a friendly voice at the end of the phone. I was speaking to one of the delegates earlier and she said to me, well, you've got someone to ask a dumb question to. There is no such thing as a dumb question when it comes to IR. The only dumb question is the question that you don't ask, because it's the one question that might save you a lot of grief down the track. How does it affect you as a turf grower? Well, it affects you in a whole multitude of ways. I'll guarantee you one thing, you didn't wake up sometime in the gym just past one morning and think, hey, I know that everything there is to know about 36 pieces of legislation, because that's how many affect the workplace. I'm going to open a business tomorrow. What you said was, I've got a great idea. I'm very good at this. I've got a terrific opportunity. I'm going to open a business. That's how you start. That's how we all start in business. The side result of that, hopefully, is that you're successful and your business grows. The direct result of business growing is I need employees. The first thing I can tell you as employers is we don't spend enough time on the recruitment process. I don't have to tell you how long it takes you to build the reputation of your business. It takes hours and hours and days and years of solid hard grunt. It'll take one employee 5 minutes to reckon. And I see too many of my clients in the past who say, I just needed, because in Western Australia we just can't get people at all, they're all up north, I just needed 2 hands and a heartbeat. Well, the 2 hands and a heartbeat just cost you about $60,000 when they rolled your truck, or they demolished your shed, or they did those sorts of things. So think more about the recruitment process that you go into. The people that you take on are intrinsically important. And there's one truism in recruitment, it is hire for attitude, not necessarily for skill. If the person's got the right attitude, you can upskill them. If they've got crap attitude to start with, you're going nowhere quickly. And in my industry, 97% of the time, you are never going to have an issue. 97% of the people you work for will be fine. It's the 3% that will give you grief, vastly out of proportion to who they are as people, and vastly out of proportion to what they actually do in your business. They are the ones, and they are the reason why we need policies and procedures. We need proper documentation to protect ourselves going forward. If anybody in this room puts their hand up and says, I have never had an employee issue, let's hope their nose doesn't grow along quite fully, because it's just not true. Everybody's had an employee issue. Sometimes they're really, really bad. Others, they're just wake-up calls. They're all wake-up calls at the end of the day. So that's how it affects you as a turf grower. Know where you are, know what awards cover you. One of the issues, I think, as a turf grower, your business is not necessarily covered by one single award. It could be covered by 2 or 3 or more. It really depends on the nature of the business and what you get your guys to do. Lots of successful businesses that I deal with have never heard of the JDF, job description form. When you don't have this sort of documentation in place, what you're doing is you're playing the game of what's in my head. I get phone calls all the time from people saying, I've got this guy, I just need to sack him, give him the arse to use that terminology, because he's just not satisfactory. Well, what the hell does that mean? What is satisfactory? Because the first thing I say is, okay, what's your JDF? What's that? What is the guy employed to do? Oh, well, there's lots of things. You know, John O's been around for ages. He started off really good. Well, you know, you're diminishing your own position all the time. The more information you give me, the more I realise that, guess what? You're going to have to start putting some process in place here if you're going to effectively manage this person out. Because when I talk to you in a minute about unfair dismissal, what we're talking about is process. And whether you like it or not, if you're a business owner, you are not just working on your core business. It is not just about growing grass. I wish it was. It's not just about baking bread or painting nails or any of those things. It's about knowing and understanding how you manage your workforce. Why? Because you don't want to end up in the Commission or Fair Work Australia pulling your wallet out your back pocket for a lot of money. Now, my intention, by the way, is not to frighten or scare you or give you indigestion, but I deal every day of the week with people that get it wrong, not deliberately. They did not get up in the morning, every morning, and say, wow, what can I do today to go completely stuff my business? I know I'll do such and such. They don't. They go down the path of non-compliance because they're trying to do the right thing by their workers. So it's easy to get it wrong, as I told you about the National Employment Standards. So if you do nothing else today when you get back to your workplace, go and Google the Fair Work Information Statement and start handing it out. Let's talk a little bit about unfair dismissal. You may well be the best human resource manager in the entire nation. You are still not going to remove an individual's right to take you, your company, for an unfair dismissal or an unlawful termination. That is the way the Fair Work Act and Work Choices before it is structured. Work Choices is at least limited the power to take unfair dismissals. Fair Work doesn't. We're talking about politicians for a minute. I mean, who was the lame duck that came up with the idea that if you're less than 15, you're a small business, if you're more than 15, you're BHP Billiton? I mean, give me a break. Fair Work Act has been around long enough now for us to begin to realise it needs some amendment. There ought to be levels of business. I mean, you may disagree with me, that's fine. I prefer a structure like the Telstra Business Awards. You've got micro business, you've got family business, micro business, small business, medium business, large business. Let's at least get a realistic handle on this. But the reality is you've got more than 15 people working for you, you are not a small business anymore. Essentially that means that you get 6 months from the date that somebody starts working with you where you are protected from unfair dismissal. This is your golden period. I'm not talking about probation, because probation generally is a different thing, that's 3 months. Employers, in my experience generally, are hopelessly bad at managing staff, their staff in that first 6 months. And if I have $5 for every employer that says, I've just got to get rid of this person, they're just causing me no end of issues, how long have they been with you for? 7 months. What have you done? What did you do to try and address the issues with this particular worker? If you're less than 15, you've got 12 months. But geez, it goes really, really quickly. So use those statutory periods of time because that's the one advantage you have when you employ people. Make sure they're the right fit for your business. If you terminate somebody, they have 14 days to lodge an unfair dismissal. I have been involved in any number of amicable terminations where as soon as the employee left,